There's a style of performance in voice acting, and you can't tell where the announcer took a breath because the script is written in such a way that you're following the announcer's stream of consciousness. And when the announcer runs out of breath as he's performing the script, he backs up a little and continues on, and the ProTools editor removes the gaps and edits the pieces together so it sounds like the performer never actually takes a breath, even though, of course, we know he does because no one can go talking indefinitely. All right, let's see if we can make sense out of this. Let me turn this off. And I want to send this to output so that you and I can hear it. Because of this style, I definitely want to edit out all the gaps, but sometimes gaps are good. We don't speak in such a way that we run every single word together, so pauses are good. But lip smacks and breaths and that sort of stuff is all stuff we want to do when we're editing dialogue. Let's start here right at the beginning. There's a style of performance in voice acting, and you can't tell where the announcer took a breath because the script is written in such a way that you're So I'm going to try and find the script is written in such. Let me zoom just a little bit. Command bracket. Maybe not quite that much. The script is written in such. I think I'm going to go in at written. Make an edit there. The script is written in. That's a little tough one because there's written here. Written in such a. I think that'll work. There's written. Let me zoom in just a little bit to make sure I'm in the well. Let's make an edit there. Zoom out again a little bit. In shuffle mode, if I light this up and delete it, it should merge those two pieces together. Let's listen to the edit. Because the script written in such a way that I cut off my is, took a breath, because the script written in such. Let me see if I can just put that back on. I want to add a little bit more here, I think. That's a tough one. Because the script written in such. So I don't want to add a little more on there. I want to put the is back on from this side and almost there. Let's see what that sounds like. The script's written in such. So I have the back half of is. This is a tricky one. The script is written in such. Maybe it's smarter in this case. Script is written in such a way that I think I'm okay with that. The script is written in such a way that you're following the announcer's stream of consciousness, and when the announcer runs out of breath as he's performing the script. So let's go at performing. Zoom in, take a look. Actually, that's a really good spot there. Performing the script, there's the P of performing. Performing this, so we'll make an edit there, and then we'll look for the P of performing back here. Runs out of breath as he's performing. Should be there. Performing this. Make an edit there, light this up, delete it, and listen to the edit. After runs out of breath as he's performing the script, he backs up a little and continues on, and the ProTools editor removes the gaps and edits the pieces together so it sounds like the performer never lacked. Maybe so it sounds like the performer never. Let's try that. We'll go in at the performer. So it sounds like the performer never. Command E there. Light that up, delete it, and listen to the edit. Sounds like the performer never actually takes a breath, even though, of course, we know he does because no one can go talking indefinitely. Even though we know Let's try it right there. We'll look for the even though back here because no one can go talking indefinitely. Takes a breath, even though, of course, there's the even though. Make an edit. Light up the part we don't want, and listen to the edit. Actually takes a breath, even though we know he does. Let's add more of the even though on this side and look for a better spot to edit. Takes a breath, even though, of course, we know. Let's try the, okay. Of course we know. The of courses look almost identical on this side and on this side. I think that it's telling me that that's my edit spot. So let me get rid of this piece, and then we'll slide over to the of course on this side and take a listen. He takes a breath, even though, of course, we know he does because no. Okay, that's quick dialogue editing. We're looking for breaths, lip smacks, anything that doesn't belong. I do want to clean up this beginning. I'm going to zoom and then just go right up to where the announcer starts. This is important for technical reasons because we don't want any noise up here, but it's also important for timing reasons. We don't want any extra time in the announcer track that doesn't belong there, simply because of bad editing. If you don't want the announcer to start right away, well, that's a different issue altogether. But we don't want sloppy editing to confuse the overall length of the read. I have one more edit to make here, I think. This is because no one can go talking into zoom in there. This is because no one can go talking. Talking seems like a good place. Talking into. So we'll cut at talking, Command E, and zoom over and find talking over here. Does because no one can go on talking. Talking looks like this piece right here. Talking in depth. Command E for that. Light this up, delete it, and listen to the edit. I guess I have to take two pieces out here. One can go talking indefinitely. And then we'll just take this whole back end and trim that off. Just delete it. I would now want to consolidate all these pieces together and then export it, much like we did with the clock in a previous chapter. Now, sometimes in dialogue editing, we have to worry about the timing. We might want this piece to start just a fraction earlier, a fraction later. Remember that timing in shuffle mode is pretty much controlled by shuffle mode. Shuffle's job is to keep this glued to the one in front of it. So in slip mode, we could use our nudge tool and bump any piece a frame or two or a second or two, one way or the other. In this movie, I want to show you one of the coolest tools in ProTools. So this is called the Time Compression and Expansion Trimmer, or the TCE trimmer. We know that the regular trimmer lives in this box here, and then this little arrow says there's more trimmers down there. The TCE is the one just under it. F6 will scroll you through those various trimmers. Just like we had the separation grabber over here included in the Smart Tool, we're going to take the TCE trimmer here and include it in the Smart Tool. So I still want to be able to use the various tools depending on where I put the cursor. That's the whole idea behind the Smart Tool. Let me zoom just a bit. Take a look at a little more waveform here. There's a style of performance in voice acting, and you can't tell where the announcer took a breath. Because let's say that not only do we want this thing to be a little frantic because there are no breaths, but we want to speed up the pace of the announcer. If I have a regular trimmer and I go to the center line, I get the trimmer. If I have the TCE trimmer, I get this icon. Now, if I have the regular trimmer, by clicking and dragging this way, I would be shortening what I'm actually listening to. I'd be changing the amount of words that I listened to before I got to the end of this clip. Not so with the time compression trimmer. It's going to take the entire length of this clip and just make it shorter. So let me grab this. The overall length right now is just under 5 seconds. So let's speed it up about 20%. Bring it to about 4 seconds and see what it sounds like. There's a style of performance in voice acting, and you can't tell where the announcer took a breath because the script, there's a style of performance in voice acting, and I'm in loop playback, and we'll get to that later on. That's about a 20% speed increase. It made new audio. It did a time shift, and if we look in the clip bin, we can see that the original audio is here, and now it's created a new time-shifted version. ProTools did a little render window. So let's take the next little piece here and choose somewhere in that area and watch as it processes audio and then gives us a new audio file in the clip bin. So let me close that. It is written in such a way that you're following the announcer's stream of consciousness, and when the announcer runs out of breath, you may be thinking, well, it can speed up. Can it slow down? It certainly can, although creatively that's probably not where we want this piece to go. But let's take this shorter one here. The performer never actually, let's drag it out. The performer never actually takes a breath. If your job was to turn this into a sort of drug-induced piece, then you're there. The performer. So what we're hearing there is granular synthesis. Pro Tools stretches this piece, but it has to kind of make up the audio that goes in between the peaks because it wasn't actually spoken that way. But we did take it over the line. Let me undo that, and let's take it out a little bit. So it's 2.5 seconds now. Let's take it to 3.5. The performer never actually takes a breath. The results of making it longer are a bit different than the results of shortening it. By shortening it, it can go in and take things out. Lengthening it, it has to put things in. It has to create things. And your results are going to vary depending on the quality of the input that you give it. Later on, we'll see the Elastic plugin, which actually lets you change the internal timing of certain words inside the performance. But the TCE trimmer is great for retiming an entire clip.